We're talking today with Mr. James Abrams of Belmont, Michigan, and the interviewer is James Smither of the Grand Valley State University Veterans History Project. Now, Mr. Abrams, can you start by telling us a little bit about your background? To start with, where and when were you born?
I was born right over at Sparta.
Okay, in what year?
1923.
All right. Okay, and what did your family do for a living then?
I worked in the railroad.
Okay, and how many kids were in your family?
There was only two of us in my family. My mother died come on, damn it. 1928.
Okay, all right. And now, how long did you go to school?
I never went to school here. I went to school in Montana.
Okay.
After my mother died, my dad grabbed me up, and I had an uncle and an aunt, and there was a guy by the name of Clark with us. I never have been able to locate what he had to do with it, but we headed west then, and Clark got a job in Kansas, and he stayed there, and so my aunt and uncle and dad and we went on to California, and my uncle got a job out there as a prison guard.
Mm-hmm.
And Dad and I went to Wyoming, and Wyoming went to Montana. And I grew up most of my years in Montana.
Okay. Now, what did your dad do in Montana?
We raised sheep.
Okay. So, did he work for a rancher, or?
He done a lot of work, but most of it was voluntarily. Besides raising stocks.
Mm-hmm.
But my dad was a damn good mechanic, and he could fix anything. And in them days, why nobody had any money, so he'd go out, fix damn combine or thresh machine or something like that, or a tractor. Come home, he'd have a quarter of beef or a couple of bushels of tomatoes or something like that. That's how I grew up during the Depression.
Yeah.
There's always food on the table.
Okay. Now, what kind of schooling did you get? What, did you go to school there?
Yeah, I went to the 8th grade.
Okay. And what did you do after the 8th grade?
Well, we come back here to Michigan.
Mm-hmm.
And then I joined the CC camp. I was just looking to discharge out there over Grand Haven. And that's where I met my buddy, and we started running together. And I got a job at the Story and Clark piano factory there. And his uncle had something to do with that gravel company out there. And as you go into Grand Haven, when you go up there and make the turn going down into Grand Haven, on the right-hand side of the beach, down on the beach, there's that big tower and that ground. Well, his uncle was part owner in that, so he went to work there. So we got an apartment, and then we started chasing girls. And that's Saturday nights we used to go up to. I can't think of the name of that little town, just the other side of Hooversville. Nunica. He used to have barn dances there every Saturday night, so we went to barn dances, and that's where I met the love of my life.
All right.
And Hank, he went in the Air Force. In fact, that's his picture there, the guy on the right-hand side, or the left-hand side over there. With pipe. He went in the paratroops, and I joined the Marines.
Okay. Now,
there was about 5 of us that joined the Marines.
Okay. Now, why did you join the Marines?
Yeah, because when he went about 2 months before I did, and I had some problems then, so I couldn't join. So he was already gone, and he went right into 101st Airborne in the Army. Well, then he made a jump at night when it was dark in a rough country, and he broke both ankles. But then he spent the next year and a half in Army hospitals. and he got out. I was overseas yet.
Right. Okay.
And
Now,
so that little doll that he was chasing, she nailed him down then. And when I come home, they already had a 2-year-old kid.
all right. Now, when did you enlist in the Marines?
I think it was in 42.
Oh, was it after Pearl Harbor?
Oh yeah, it was after Pearl Harbor. That's why I went.
Right.
In fact, they enlisted at the post office in Grand Haven. The day I went down there was 5 of us that enlisted that morning. And we're going to show them little suckers what
Right.
instead they showed us now.
Okay. Now, when
We won the war and they won the economy.
Yep. Yeah, and to think that they really wanted to win the economy in the first place. But okay, you enlist after Pearl Harbor.
Yeah.
Now, and then did you have to wait a little bit? You said you couldn't get in right away. You had to wait 2 months, or
Well, that was when my buddy enlisted.
okay.
I had a little ailment then, and that's why I couldn't get in. So then I enlisted, probably a month after he enlisted. He enlisted the Air Force.
Right.
And I enlisted a month after that. Then I went down there, and all the guys that enlisted that day when I got down there, I knew them all down there anyhow.
All right. Now, where did they send you for basic training?
Basic training, I went to San Diego.
All right. Now, how did they get you to San Diego?
Oh, by train.
Okay. And what was the train trip like?
Boring.
Do you remember how long it took?
No, I don't. I remember the train went through the edge of Mexico on the way down there to California, to San Diego. But it was boring.
Mm-hmm. All right. When you got to San Diego, what kind of greeting did you get from the Marine Corps?
Greeting?
Yeah. What did they do when you got to the camp?
Well, your first day in boot camp, they chew your rear end out and tell you how stupid you are and everything else. And I remember the drill instructor said, when you go down that landing ramp the first time, you're the lonesomest man in the world, because he says there's only one person in the world you can depend on, and that's yourself. So he says, you keep your damn mouth shut, your ears, eyes and ears open, and we'll teach you how to do it. Well, I guess I did a pretty good job, because I got back.
Right.
All in one piece.
Okay. Now, what kind of things did they make you do in boot camp?
What?
What did you do when you were in boot camp?
We worked all the time.
Okay.
Then a dumb thing, one day we was in formation out there, the damn gunnery sergeant comes out and says, I need 2 volunteers truck driving. And this kid from Chicago, him and I kind of fell in together, running together. So he stepped out and he says, let's take it, Jim. So we jumped up, took it. You know what truck driving is, don't you? The truck's got 1 wheel and 2 handles on it, and you're the engine. That's the first time I learned you can never volunteer for anything in the Marine Corps. Mm-hmm. I learned it twice in the Marine Corps. When I was on, it was after Okinawa. And there was about 7 of us in the company that were the old men. We'd been there all the way across the Pacific. So we was taken out and put in a casual platoon waiting for a ship. In them days they didn't use planes, they was waiting for a ship to come in. About the 3rd or 4th day, our captain that we'd had all the way across, he got a bullet in the chest. I never could find out. Captain Thomas was his name, but I never could find out whether he died or not. They hauled him out of there with a bullet in his chest. And then we got one of the college captains. He was from Boston. He didn't know a war was going on because he had a thing going for some doll back there in Boston, and he lasted 1 week. Then he was killed. In fact, I think I don't know if I got that. I think I might have the pictures of his.
I'd like to go back to the beginning of your story here. We'll talk about Okinawa later, but we were talking about your experiences in boot camp.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you learned you had your first lesson in do not volunteer.
Yeah.
So you learned the truck driving thing. Okay. Now, was it easy for you to adjust to life in the Marines, or was it hard?
Well, of course, I was just a teeny bopper then, you know. It was easy, I guess.
So were you in good
I used to get mad a lot of times, but that's how I learned my serial number. We have formation, you know, and the colonel, he was going down and checking. He says, what's your serial number? I see, I don't know, sir. Told that drill sergeant, he says, teach this kid his serial number. He taught it to me. I can tell you today, 521777.
All right.
After formation was over, and then he told me, he says, get your pack on, your rifle, come up to my tent. So I go up there and knocked on the tent, because they all living in tents there in Dago. And I knocked on it, and here he come out with a folding chair, went out there on parade ground, which is probably a half-mile long. He sets that chair up underneath the shade of a tree, and I got a full pack and that damn rifle. He says, start double timing around here. Every time I come around up in front of him, I'd have to stop and stand at attention there and sound my number off. And that's why I still remember today.
Okay. Now,
I got even with him though.
Okay. How?
Well, later on, that was just after we left Melbourne, right? And down the island that where we had our base camp at for the first half of the way up to the Pacific, they had a Red Cross coffee tent down one end, and three of us run down there and got some coffee one afternoon. We're coming back, and here's a whole pile of them that they just brought from the States, all standing there in formation. Here, that damn corporal that was my drill instructor, he's standing there. I see him, so I walked over and said hello to him, and we shook hands, and got talking about this, that, or the other thing, and I said, oh, he was married, I knew that. I said, did you send your letter to your wife yet? And he said, what? I said, well, the next one out the road there, I guess there's a good chance of everybody getting killed. And I said, you always write your wife a letter and tell her how much you love her, and this is the last one she'll get from you, this, that, and the other thing. We got back to the tent. A few minutes later, there's old Captain Thomas. Abrams, get your ass out here. Yes, sir, what's wrong? What in the hell did you tell that guy? I said, I'm just even a scorpion. He said, I tried to get this little son of a bitch to come in my outfit, and he didn't want to. He went in another outfit. I thought, that was good.
All right. Now, when you were in training, were you in good physical shape?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, you could do the exercise. Okay. And did they give you weapons training there? Did you learn to shoot and use the weapons?
Oh, yeah. And in fact, I was a squad leader later on. When we went to China, I was a squad leader. Mm-hmm. And, yeah, we had machine guns.
Right. Yeah. Do you remember what kinds of weapons did you train on?
Well, I trained on a 30 caliber, a 50 caliber machine gun, 37 millimeter anti-tank gun, and I shot 75 a few times. So we had on our tank, we had heavy platoon there. They had 4 tank destroyers, and halfway across the Pacific, there was white trucks with a track on
half tracks, yeah.
Half tracks, yeah. And then I think it was right after Pelelieu. Then we got some M7 tank destroyers. And I got a picture over there. One of them sitting in on a muddy day.
There was the, well, we can,
Pardon?
well, that we can find pictures of that. I mean, actually, I think the M10 was the main tank destroyer. Had an open. Did the tank destroyer have an open top? It had a turret but no roof.
Yeah.
Yeah, M10. Okay. Now let's see. Did you also train as a scout sniper?
I went to sniper school. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So how long did basic training last?
A basic training is 60 days.
Okay. And
That's for you. They give your life back to you.
right.
During that 60 days, you stay in that damn tent till you're called out of it. And if there's a guy from your hometown and a squad next door, you don't go over and talk to him. Unless you go to the head tent up there and get permission. You have to go up there and knock on it and stand at attention. And if they give you permission to go over there, you're okay, but otherwise you don't be out roaming around. First 60 days in the Marine Corps, you're just like a prisoner.
Right.
When you go to PX, you can't just run up there anytime you buy stuff. You go up there in formation, the drill instructor stands right there by the counter and tells you what you can buy and what you can't, which reminds me. I got that letter open laying on there. You want that thing? I bet you I haven't used it twice in my life. The only reason I bought it is something I could buy, but I never use it. It's a rifle.
All
With a
right.
bayonet on it. It's a letter opener.
Okay. So after the first 60 days, what did they do?
Then you go into a regular outfit, see? And then you got your life back. I mean, you can go on liberty and do all kinds of things then.
Okay. Now, what unit? Let's see. Now, did you join a regular unit, or were you still in training?
What?
After boot camp, after the first 60 days,
Oh,
are
yeah.
you doing more training?
After boot camp, I went, well, after boot camp, I went right in what the hell they call it now? The bunch that ship overseas.
Okay. So you shipped out right away.
Yeah.
All right. Now, how did they ship you across the Pacific?
In a boat.
What kind of boat?
It was bigger than an LST. LST is what we usually rode
Later, yeah.
when making landings.
Right. But just like
I can't remember what kind of ship it was.
But it wasn't a big ocean liner or something like that. It wasn't an ocean liner, a really big ship?
No,
Okay.
it wasn't a big one, no.
Yeah. So do you have an idea? Do you know how many guys maybe were on the ship?
I have no idea.
Yeah. Like, a few hundred?
Too many of them, I know that.
All right. Now, did you sail in a convoy? Were you sailing in a convoy?
Not when we went overseas the first time, no.
Okay. So you were sailing by yourself.
Yeah.
All right. What do you remember about the trip over the ocean?
But what?
Do you remember crossing the equator or crossing the date line?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, everybody remembers crossing the equator.
But did they have a ceremony for crossing the equator?
Not in our ship.
Not for you. Okay. Now, where did you land on the other side?
What the hell was the name of it? It was in the Solomon Islands.
Okay.
But there's a little island there, and I can't remember
Well,
the name.
there's a little island called Tulagi that's right across from Guadalcanal.
I don't think that was it, no.
Okay. But you didn't just land on
Right.
Guadalcanal?
So we landed in there, and then I don't know, a few months later is when we went to Melbourne. And
Okay.
then we left Melbourne. That's when we started up the chute there. That was when we hit New Britain. New Britain's just north. I was trying to think of the island. It's just south of New Britain.
Bougainville? Bougainville is south of New Britain.
Well, it wasn't.
Or New Georgia? Or
New Guinea.
okay, New Guinea, sure.
New Guinea.
Okay. Now,
Yeah. We stopped there.
right.
In fact, New Guinea. And we was on shore for a little while. The army had that whole thing up there. We had a couple of units in our outfit that went up there. Up with the army there for 3 or 4 days.
Okay, well, let's kind of go back a little bit. So, did you go to Guadalcanal?
Pardon?
Did you land on Guadalcanal?
I didn't land on Guadalcanal. I landed next door to it.
Right.
One of the see, Guadalcanal was a big island, the
Right.
Solomon Islands.
Right.
I landed next door to it, but then I wound up over there.
Right.
And,
Yeah. So,
all them islands in the Pacific, Pelelieu, that was in the Palau Islands. Okinawa was in the Ryukyu Islands. But so many times you see in the paper today, they don't get their facts straight. In fact, that, what the hell was his name? That newspaper man, he used to be on the front lines all the time. He got killed over there.
Ernie Pyle.
Ernie Pyle, yeah. Ernie Pyle went to Okinawa with our 1st Marine Division. But then he would get out and he went over to the, I think it was the 77th Army, no, the 77th he was with when he got killed. That was on Aishima.
Right.
And he was walking down the road on Aishima and a Jap sniper got him. But before he went there, he was, I think, in 95th Army and 96th Army Division. Was on the other side of Okinawa. He was over there. That's the way he was. He checked all the units, went through all of them.
Right. Okay. Now let's go back to Guadalcanal. Do you remember when you got to Guadalcanal?
God, no.
Okay. Was there still fighting going on then? Were they still fighting on Guadalcanal when you got there?
There was a few Japs on there yet. The Japs were spread all over, and the other islands in that group, there's Japs on all of them.
Right.
In fact, I remember an Australian company come up to Guadalcanal, and they landed on one of them off islands out there. And somebody had got the wrong amount. Didn't know what he's talking about or something. Anyhow, there's only supposed to be a few Japs on it. But there was too many Japs on it, and they got wiped out.
All right. Now, what unit did you join when you got there?
Oh, when I got there, I went right in the 1st Marine Division.
Right.
And I was in 1st Regiment, Weapons Company.
Okay, so you go to the Weapons Company, 1st Marine Regiment. Okay.
That's right.
Now, were they...
Chesty Puller was our...
Right. Now, were they in action then? Were they fighting, or were they just in camp?
Well, they had just in camp at that time, but there was still some fighting going on in the canal there. This is not too many days after that, we had to go out a couple, 3 times on some of the smaller islands around there too.
Okay. Yeah, so now what do you remember about Guadalcanal itself? What was the area like you were in, or what did you see there?
About the only thing I seen there, a few Japs. And I don't remember much about Guadalcanal.
No.
I remember most because we left Guadalcanal, and then after we went to Melbourne, then we went up the islands, and then we had a base camp on Pelelieu Island. And that's where our base camp is, and we worked from there out until we get halfway to the Pacific. Then we concluded.
All right.
But during that time, when we was on Pelelieu there, down on the end of the island, the Red Cross had a coffee shop down there. And we was on that island for several little campaigns around there.
Okay.
And we always come back there.
All right. Now, tell me a little bit about Australia. Because after Guadalcanal, you went to Melbourne.
Well, I see, according to the local paper in Melbourne, there was 15 women per every man. Yeah, you walk down the streets in Melbourne there, on every corner, the anti-aircraft gun, all female crew. Every place you looked, there's females.
Yeah.
According to the paper, there's 15 women, because all the Aussies were up in the islands fighting.
Right.
And then we was in Melbourne, I can't remember for how long, it was for a while there. Because a lot of guys got hooked up with them, because I remember after the war, I remember reading that they had 2 boatloads of Aussie girls they brought to the United States They was married to Americans here.
All right. So when you went to Australia, was that just for R&R, just to get some time off?
Well, it was for R&R, yeah, mostly.
Okay.
But it was also in case something happened.
All right.
And the last 2 weeks was in Melbourne. I remember we slept on the where you had a big football field and things like that, you know, in the bleachers.
Mm-hmm.
They had beds on each one of them bleachers, double military beds that they used on each one of them. We slept on them. We'd have to crawl up in them at night. So we wasn't always doing playing in them days.
Right.
From then on.
Okay. Now, when you joined the 1st Marine Division, what kind of treatment did you get from the older soldiers, from the guys who had been fighting already? How did they treat you?
Oh, okay. I never had no problems.
Okay.
The only one guy in our outfit that I had a problem with, and I told him, I said, the next campaign you ain't gonna make it.
All right.
He did make it, but
All right. So after your time in Melbourne, then did you go to Pavuvu next? And after Melbourne?
After Melbourne, that was when we hit Cape Gloucester, New Britain.
Okay. So
in fact, I got a where the hell did that thing go? I've gone in every town. Oh, it's not here. I got to go in the other room and get it.
well,
Everything.
What is it that you're looking for?
I'm looking for seashell.
All right.
Everything keeps moving on me.
All right. Well, I'll pause it here if you want to go get that. All right. We were talking about you land on Cape Gloucester on New Britain. So this was really the first battle you were in?
That was the second battle. I had a real battle. I got shot at a few times on Guadalcanal.
Okay. Can you tell me a little bit about that? What happened when you got shot at on Guadalcanal?
I shot back.
Now, were you in the jungle or on the base or?
No, I was in jungles. But everything was in jungles over then.
Mm-hmm.
See? They didn't build a big base camp or anything because it wasn't going to be on that island. Just gone. We was headed back up the Pacific. And we went up the Pacific as fast as Japs came down it.
Right. Now, when you were, were you patrolling into the jungle looking for the Japanese when they shot at you, or did they attack you, or when the Japanese shot at you on Guadalcanal? Were you on patrol then, or
sometimes?
Okay.
See, I went to sniper school too, and that's I was getting my share in.
Okay. So you were working as a sniper at that point?
At that point, yeah.
For scouting? Okay. Now, would you go out by yourself or?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. And do you remember the first time you did that?
Oh, the first time I shot one? Oh, I'll remember that the rest of my life. Oh, I grew up in Montana. And this, of course, this is the one thing that gets me today. All the years I went to school, not once did I ever hear of a kid coming to school with a gun and shooting up. And in the fall, during bird season, all us older boys would carry a shotgun to school with us. And the teacher would put it in the closet, put the ammunition up there, and that night, on the way home, we was shooting fool's hens or sage hens. And fool hens, that was blue grouse. We called them fool hens, because when you jumped a covey of them, you'd shoot one, and the rest of them would all land in the nearest tree. Then you'd go over there and shoot another one, and then they'd take off. But if there was a tree 20 feet away, the damn fools would land in that a lot of times. See, and then you go over there and get another one. I've got as many as 3 of them in one time, you know. And it's crazy.
Okay. But you grew up shooting. So you knew how to shoot from when you were a kid.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So you were talking about going out as a sniper the first time? And what happened then?
Well, it was, I don't know, about 4 or 5 Japanese, one following the other one down through there. And then you shoot one. You always shoot the guy with the most stripes on.
Were you in a?
That's why the Marines, we never wore stripes in combat.
Right.
I still got some stripes laying around there someplace, but I didn't have them on my uniform.
Right.
Because you shoot the highest official in the line. If there's a lieutenant or something like that, you shoot him before you shoot the other ones.
Yeah, well, that's what they did to us. So they did that too, when they could. Okay.
They've done everything.
All right. Okay. So you were sort of in an ambush position. So you were in an ambush there.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're just trapping them. Okay. Now, when you went, when you landed at Cape Gloucester, were the Japanese fighting back or were they hiding?
Well, they were screwed up. See, they on the Cape Gloucester, that's right on the end of the islands there, on the point down there. They had all their big guns right on that point, because the word was out that we was going up there, and they knew we was coming. In fact, we landed on Cape Gloucester on Christmas Day. Because I remember going up there, one of the jeeps they had set on the deck of the landing barge there, and the guys had the radio turned on. They had Tokyo Rose on it, and she was playing all the good records, you know, like Bing Crosby's "I'll Be Home for Christmas," and Frank Sinatra's and all that, trying to get us in a bad mood. And then she got on after she played the record and started telling us, "Oh, we know you're coming, boys, and our boys have got a Christmas party all planned up for us." And they had all them big guns buried on the point down there pointing out the ocean. Only they forgot. Old Chesty Puller was our commander. He was in charge of the regiment. He knew more about fighting wars than anybody they've had since. So we were supposed to land on that point. He took us a mile up. We landed back upstream. We got off. We walked down there, and I bet you we didn't fire 3 shots till we got down to the point, and they had to start trying to pull the guns out of their emplacements. They couldn't get them out. Half of them, we got them before they got them out.
Okay.
But he was a Sharpie.
Now, when you landed, were you in small landing craft, like the little ones with the door on the front?
Yeah.
LCVPs?
That's, landing barge, yeah.
Right.
The door.
Okay. Okay, but where you landed, were there any Japanese soldiers?
Pardon?
When you landed, were the Japanese there, or were they all at the end?
No, they was all down there on the point waiting for us. Come in and walk into them guns. That's why I say old Chesty said, take it a mile up the beach and landed.
Right.
We got off there, I think maybe 1 or 2 shots fired when we got off the boat. And so we got down the beach a ways.
Okay. Now, when you got down there, did the Japanese retreat, or did they stand and fight?
Well, they had to stand and fight. Their guns was all buried. As soon as they figured out that we was heard us coming, they started trying to get them guns out, and they got a couple of them big ones out. What the hell was it? 70 millimeters. Had a short barrel on them. But most of the big guns they got. And we had the tanks were in front. Each tank has a squad of men behind it. See, and the tank takes care of the easy stuff, and we're back there to make sure the Japs don't come out and stick a bar in the track or something like that, because they was good at that. And they also used a lot of what they used to call them cocktails.
So yeah, Molotov cocktails.
Molotov cocktails, yeah. They'd run out of the brush and throw one of them on a tank, you know. That's why we had our squads right behind. They run out of the brush and we shoot them.
Right. Okay. Now, was that a relatively short fight? Was that a quick battle?
Yeah, as battles go, that was a quick one, yeah, in New Britain.
Right.
We nailed them right off the bat.
Okay.
Like I said, the bigger the guns was down, wasn't doing them no good.
Now, did you stay there for a while after you captured the point?
We was there, I think, if I remember right, about a week.
Okay.
Because I know we, us guys all went, there's a creek run right down through there. And in fact, that's where I picked this shell up when I was walking down that creek. So us guys all get down there in the creek one day. We took all our clothes off, you know, and jumped in the creek, go swim. pretty soon we heard a bunch of giggling, and we looked up, and there's a bunch of native girls standing out there looking at us. We're bare-assed out there in the creek. No privacy all over.
Now, during the time you were there, did the Japanese try to attack you, or did they stay away?
They tried to bomb us a few times. A few nights there, the planes had come in. But we didn't have any of them come out of the brush after us.
All right. And then but then they take you off of Cape Gloucester pretty quickly then.
And then we got off Cape Gloucester, and then they started up the pathway.
Okay. Now, where did you go next?
From Cape Gloucester, I think Pelelieu was the next one.
Right. But you stopped, but you went to Pavuvu first, or New Guinea, or?
Pavuvu, that's where we had our base camp.
Right.
And so for the first half of the Pacific, we always went back to Pavuvu.
Right.
But then after we got up past Palau Islands,
Right.
after we got out past there, well, it was kind of in motion all the time.
Right. Okay.
We hit a few small islands in there, I remember that.
But in the meantime, after Cape Gloucester then, you'd go back to Pavuvu because that was still your base?
After Cape Gloucester, yeah, I think we went back to Pavuvu. That's where they had the Red Cross had a big tent down on the end of the street down there where they served coffee.
Right. All right.
Yeah. I remember going back there. Because when we was on Pavuvu, I was getting along the edge of the brush there. A guy laying there all blowed to hell, but he's still alive. So there was a great big rock out there about the size of a car. So I drug him back behind this rock, and right after I drug him back there, I was going a little ways, and then I see these two stretcher bearers over there. So I yelled at him, and I told him where he was at. And so later on, when it was all over with, when it was back to our base camp, I was working my way down to the other end to get a cup of coffee at the Red Cross, and I bumped into these two guys, the medics, the stretcher bearers in the Marine Corps were all swab jockeys, they're all Navy, but they was temporarily transferred in the Marines. And I run into them when I was going down to get a cup of coffee. But we stopped and shook hands and told everybody how lucky we was we made it out of there. And I says, did you ever pick that guy up? And he says, one guy says, what was left of him? I said, what do you mean what was left of him? He said, when we got back there, some cotton-picking Jap and snuck in there and cut his head off. The head was gone. The body was there, but the head was gone.
So there were still Japanese then on Pavuvu at that time?
No, this was on...
or was that back on Guadalcanal?
No, that was when you hit Pelelieu, yeah.
Oh, okay.
This guy blew all the hell, and
yeah, because we're just trying to get your story in order here in the different pieces. But it's on Pavuvu that you ran into these medics and talked to them.
It's on Pavuvu when I went back.
Right.
Yeah, we were back after the combat up there. We were back there. That's where our base camp was at.
Right. Okay.
And it was down on the end of the island there that the Red Cross had the coffee tent.
All right.
Of course, the Red Cross girl, you never seen her in there. They had 3 buck privates in there running that. And the only time I ever seen her was when I see the general riding around in his Jeep, and she was in it.
All right.
I often wondered whether he ever told his wife about that when he got home.
Okay, so after Cape Gloucester then, the next battle you're in is the one at Pelelieu.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, before you landed on Pelelieu, what did you know about it? Did they give you any orders or any instructions?
Yeah, I think we had one meeting on it. And, but things always change. That was one thing about old Chesty Puller. He was always changing things, you know, because for some reason or other, everything got out. Like when we was in Melbourne, the people in Melbourne knew where we was going to land when we left Melbourne before we did. And yeah, I remember walking down the street, and every once in a while, they'd go by me, and good luck. What the heck did they call us?
Yanks? Do they call you Yanks?
Yeah, Yank, I guess it was. Good luck, Yank. And I'm thinking to myself, good luck for what? They already knew we was going up there. And that was saying, that's why Chesty always changed the plan at the last minute.
Okay, so can you tell me what happened as you go in to land at Pelelieu? What did you see? What did you do?
Oh, they was blowing hell out of everything, both ways. And after we got up on the beach, we lost a lot of guys in Pelelieu. In fact, I think that was the worst battle we had in the Pacific, Pelelieu. And the Japs had a lot of tanks on there too. I remember 3 or 4 times, and we had a whole load of tanks going across that field out there after us. But we had 3 squads of 37 millimeter anti-tank guns, and then we had the half tracks.
Mm-hmm.
They had 105s on them, so we could make a mess too.
Okay, so you really got to actually fight against enemy tanks, because that didn't happen too often in the Pacific.
Pardon?
Well, usually the Japanese did not have tanks.
Oh, yeah.
A few times they did. But anyway, your weapons company really got to use its anti-tank weapons. Okay, all right. Now,
And they also, in 37 millimeter anti-tank guns, they had a, what the hell did they call that? It's just like a shotgun shell.
mm-hmm.
And I think there was 120 quarter-inch pellets in that, and they got a piece of tin, you know, wrapped around it. And the shell was about that long. They'd fire them out of 37, and the troops would come in. It was like a big shotgun. Mm-hmm. It really tore things up.
Now, when you were on Pelelieu, did you stay back a little bit from the forward units? I mean, did you have regular infantry who were going ahead of you fighting? Because if you've got the weapons company,
yeah,
you're supporting them.
Yeah,
okay.
we had the heavy weapons there. Mm-hmm. Well, we had air cooled 30s. My squad was air cooled 30s, and then we had 50 calibers. Mm-hmm. They were the newer ones. They were air cooled too. And then we had the 4 tank destroyers.
Right.
And each one of them tank destroyers, of course, they're all open on the top, M7s, you know, and they're open on the top. So then they took that down to our truck park when we first got them in, and they welded gun brackets on each corner. So they not only had that 105 sticking out the front, and that had a 30 caliber machine gun connected with it beside it, but then they were on the what the mount was down there on the circle on the side, on the right hand side it is, up in front. And that had a 50 caliber machine gun in there, air cooled. Then they welded mounts on the other 3 corners, and we had 30 calibers on there. So there was 3, 4, 30 calibers, 5, because there was one mounted on with the main gun down there too. There's 5 30 calibers. Right. And 50 caliber.
Now, could the main gun, because this is an M7, so it's a self-propelled artillery piece, so could that fire like a howitzer? Could the 105 shoot kind of up as well as straight?
Well, it's done both ways.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, that is the M7. That's the right vehicle there. Okay.
It depends on how far you was.
Yeah, but it's a 105 howitzer, so it was a big gun. All right. Now, when a lot of the fighting in Pelelieu was fighting in caves and bunkers and spider holes and that kind of thing. How close did you get to the Japanese there?
I tried to stay as far from them as I could. You do that by shooting them, see.
Mm-hmm.
No, I was lucky.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, I've been screwed up more since I come back to this country than I ever was in action. I had a chunk taken out of my back leg here, and first job I had, I was working in a plant in Muskegon. That doggone young snot didn't know how to drive, and he was running a high-low, and he ran into me with a high-low. And then I had this hand taken off, 1956. I worked for a company in Grand Rapids. I was safer over there.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I could run faster.
Right. Now, what do you remember? I mean, what did Pelelieu look like? Was it just rocky, or were there trees? Or
No, it was mostly, it wasn't that much rock deal on it. I'm trying to think of what island was it. I think it was Okinawa. They had a lot of rock on it.
Mm-hmm.
But Pelelieu didn't. The only thing they had was a lot of Japs.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Now, did you leave Pelelieu before the fighting was over?
No.
Okay.
No, as far as I know. Well, I know there was no shots fired the last few days after the Japs surrendered.
All right. Now, when the Japs surrendered, did you see any prisoners?
See any what?
The Japanese prisoners on Pelelieu. You said some of them surrendered?
Yeah.
So did you get a look at them?
No, I never paid much attention to them.
Mm-hmm.
Because too many of them never made it home.
Right.
I remember that was when after I had in charge of the squad, I don't remember what island it was on. Anyhow, I went to the old Chesty Puller. He always had his deal right behind the lines. I mean, that's why the officers never liked to be in his outfit, because they was up there where the bullets was flying. And I remember this guy come in, and I had went up to get something. He was about 50 foot behind the lines. And this guy comes in there. He was a lieutenant, brand new lieutenant, just got over there. Coming in there, and he's got this Jap. And what is they'd already tried to get the information. What the hell they call that? Anyhow, the Jap had been run that, and of course he didn't know nothing. He wouldn't tell him anything. And so this guy brought him over there, and Chesty says, "Shoot him." Or no, he says, "Get rid of him." And this lieutenant, he says, "You mean shoot him, sir?" He said, "You heard me, shoot the son of a bitch." The lieutenant had to take him out in the brush, and heard a couple bangs with a 45, and that was the end of the Jap. But that lieutenant didn't like that atoll. But that's the way it was.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, yeah.
I'll remember the day I died, the first one I shot. After I pulled that trigger, I thought, what the hell is my dad going to say? Because when I grew up in Montana, like I said, I never heard of a kid ever taking a gun to school and shooting it up. We was educated on that from the day we could walk. And I had no choice, because a second after I spotted him, he spotted me and he started to swing like this. And I had to pull the trigger.
Mm-hmm.
That's partly to do with my being a Catholic today. Because after the battle was over, there was some more fog. And after the battle was over and everything was quiet, I was sitting in a log there and I was all tore out of shape. And this captain come along, and turned out he was a
Chaplain? Chaplain?
chaplain for the 1st Regiment. And he was a Catholic priest. So he sat on the log there and talked to me for a while and that. And then after he got up to go, he told me, he said, when you get back to the base camp. He says, I got a tent down there. It's just 2 tents this size of the Red Cross tent. He says, stop in once in a while. We'll have coffee. So I used to stop in, and we had coffee down there, and he worked on me. So when I come home, that old doll over in Coopersville, I was already on the way to bed, see. And she was full of Catholics.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, I was the first one back when we got married, or before we got married. When I was converted, I went to that church. It used to be out in the, my brain ain't working at all today. Clear up on Plainfield, out there. I can't even remember the church now. Anyhow, they had bought an old theater there in that old business district there, and they bought this old theater and this damn.
Well, but you got baptized before you got married.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was baptized on the stage. That was the first one baptized in that old theater. Now they got a great big theater up there. And yeah.
Okay, so you survived Pelelieu, and you didn't get hurt. And then after Pelelieu, you said you went to some smaller islands?
Yeah, it's small. And just small units that you can send in, see.
Mm-hmm.
And because the Japs are all over. I
Right.
mean, them big islands, that was the main island. But all them little islands around them in that group
Okay.
would have Japs on them.
Yeah.
And,
Well, some of them.
cleaning up your mess.
Right. Yeah. Well, some of them we just left there, because you could leave the Japs on the islands because they couldn't get out. But so you think you were in some smaller islands around Pelelieu?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. And then after that, did you get to go back to a base camp for a while? Did you get to rest after Pelelieu?
No, after Pelelieu, we started moving up the Pacific.
Mm-hmm.
And we went halfway up it with that base camp down there. And then after that, well, I was hop, skip, and a jump. Till we got to Okinawa. Then from Okinawa, I was putting a reserve squad down there to go home. I don't know, 5, 6 of us down there. We was the old men company, had been in it all the way across. And they got our captain. He got shot in the chest, Captain Thomas. I never did hear how he come out. They hauled him out of there. Of course, during a battle there, there's not much information, you know. Nobody got time to be standing around talking. And then we got that new one in, and he was from Boston. And he didn't even know there was a war going on. All he knew was that doggone doll was back in Boston waiting for him. I felt sorry for the poor bastard. He didn't last. I think it was a week he lasted. He got killed. I got pictures someplace of his lot in the cemetery.
Okay. Now,
And,
can we go back a little bit here on Okinawa? You're telling me things that happened a little later. What happened at Okinawa when you first landed there? You land on Okinawa, what do?
Oh, when we first landed there, we had to fight then. We hit them on this side, and I think it was the Army's 95th, or whatever. They hit them on the other side of the island, see. And Naha, the capital, that still grinds me. That first night, I stood on the side of the ridge up there around Naha, looking down on the town, and we had 405s up there that were shelling it. And the Army 77th, they had some 8-inch long toms down there a little ways, and they was shelling it. And then 77th and 94th or 96th, I don't remember, was over on the other side. Everybody's, next day when we went through Naha, I don't think there was 2 shots fired. There wasn't even a live spider in that town. All them cement blocks, everything was complete. So. They know we didn't run into Japs till we got the other side of town.
Mm-hmm.
Then, about 2 years after I was married, I guess it was, I come home one night and flopped in the chair, and my wife used to get a magazine called Pick, the Picture magazine. I don't think it's published anymore, but it used to be. It was a big magazine, but it was thin. And I sat down in the chair there. I was tired out. And the new one had just come in. I looked at it, and right across the front it said, "The New Naha." That was the name of the capital.
Mm-hmm.
I did read someplace the other day that the name has been changed. The Japs changed the name, but it's not Naha, they call it something. But anyhow, at that time it was New Naha. And I opened that sucker up. When we hit it, they had the one road. They had a road to run from one end of the Okinawa to the other, straight. That run right through the city of Naha. All the side roads were dirt. When I opened that magazine, all the side roads were paved.
Mm-hmm.
All them buildings that was reduced to rubble, they had better buildings in there than we got in Grand Rapids. And this is what gets me. Why do we go in there and blow something up and then spend the money like that deal they got going today? That's all it's about. They go in there and blow them buildings up, and then they send some American contractors over there to build something better than they ever had. Like the joke that used to go around World War II. Two mayors from two foreign countries got together. And one of them was complaining to the other one. He says, "I get all these things wrong in this town." He says, "I haven't got any money to fix it." And the other one told him, says, "All you got to do is get in a fight with the United States, let them blow it up, and they'll build it better than it was." Well, that's truth. It's bullshit. I seen the paper just the other day. We owe the Japs over $1 trillion right now. We won the war, but we lost the peace.
All right. Let's kind of go back into your story there, back on Okinawa. So you were involved in some of the fighting then, past Nahak and attacking the main Japanese lines?
Oh, yeah.
And can you describe a little bit what that was like?
Well, I wouldn't say it's fun. I think I got a couple pictures in there on Okinawa, or in fact, it rained. Oh God, it rained when it was on Okinawa. Most of the fighting was done then, but oh, don't ever get old.
Right. Now, on Okinawa, were you still using your heavy weapons on Okinawa? Were you using the tank destroyers and their guns?
Well, given a chance for what?
On Okinawa, were
Yeah.
you still using the tank destroyers and the heavier guns in your company?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, did the Japanese come and try to attack you, or?
Well, on Okinawa, most of the time we was attacking them, yeah.
And do you remember how long you stayed in the fight on Okinawa?
No, I
Because
don't.
you didn't stay for the whole thing.
It seems though every time we turned around, somebody was shooting at us.
Mm-hmm.
But I wasn't firing the big gun.
Right.
I had a squad there with 30 caliber
The machine gun,
guns.
yeah.
I was a squad leader.
Now, after a certain amount of time, did they rotate your unit out of the line? So you were fighting the Japanese, and then did they take you out of the line for a
No,
while?
usually when we was fighting the Japs, we didn't get out of the line till the Japs was dead.
Right. Yeah.
No.
But so did you stay? So were you fighting until the fighting was
I was
over?
trying to think yeah, it was on Okinawa. How the hell did that work out? We, one time I was up there in the lines, and they rotated some of the guys back to an army. Army had a grub center there, And some of our guys went back over to the army outfit to eat. I think that was on Okinawa, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
There were a lot of things went on that island. And old Truman said, drop the big one, and that stopped everything.
Well, by that time, the fighting in Okinawa was pretty much over.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
That's why the Japs surrendered, see, they were just about done in the Pacific anyhow, so.
All right. Okay. Now,
You ever read that book, the Japanese, probably the paperback? I think I got it up here.
all right.
It was written by a bunch of Japs.
Okinawa, when the war ended.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. And then after the Japanese surrendered, what did you do next?
Well, I went down in the casual platoon, and about 4 of us went down. It was the old guys in the outfit. And we was waiting for a boat to come in and take us home. And we had that new captain. We just got him a few days before that because we had lost 2 of them. And he comes down there, and I looked at him, and I got kind of ticked off. I thought, the jackass just got here, and he must be going back already. I said, you going home, sir? And he says, no, I'm coming down for you. And me and 3 other guys. He said, I told him, I said, I got to get home. I said, I got that little farm girl up there, Coopersville, waiting for me. And I said, she's been waiting a long time. He says, well, she's going to have to wait a little longer because you're going to China. I said, I didn't lose nothing in China. What the hell am I going to China for? Do you remember you volunteered? Well, this is the duration. You got 6 months to go. So I went to China.
Now, how did you get to China?
They put us on a ship.
Okay. And do you remember where you went in China? Did you go to Shanghai?
No, I didn't go to Shanghai. What the hell was the name of that town I stayed in? I can't remember.
Okay. But you went to China, and what did you do there?
Well, mostly I sat around because that was right after. I sat around most of the time, man. Buddy, I can't remember his name now. He was in charge of our truck park, and so every day about 10 o'clock he'd come down with a jeep, jump the jeep, come over and pick me up and get downtown. And that town, it had several different sections. There was a Chinese section, a Japanese section. There was a Russian, French section. A bunch of them. Anyhow, there was a restaurant down there, coffee shop. And we just get down there every day and drink coffee for a half hour and come back. And we just wait for the boat to come in.
Mm-hmm.
And then that day, the captain was down and he says, you're going to China. I don't want to go to China. I said, I never lost anything. I said, how about them guys standing over there? They're draftees. They just got over there. They haven't even fought nothing yet. He said, that's why they're going home, because they're draftees. He said, war is over for them. He said, remember you volunteered? Duration plus 6 months. You bastards. So, go to China. I didn't see nothing in China I even liked. Yeah, sometimes you have a hard time telling the difference between the Chinaman and the Jap. Maybe that's why I hated them.
What was your mission? What were you supposed to be doing in China?
Well, protecting the dead Japanese. See, one day you're shooting the bastards, and the next day you're protecting them. Yeah. Japs had taken China over, you know. In all them big cities, they had these warehouses with ammunition supplies in. Every night, that was in the Chinese, what the hell did they call it? The Communist Party started over there. Well, the communists, they had a bunch of damned old antique guns. That's all they had. And them warehouses full of good Japanese guns. So every other night, the doggone bunch of them be going down the street, trying to get in there. So our squads, half of us got liberty one night, and the next night we had to stay duty, and then the other guys got liberty. That's the way. 8-man squad and a squad leader. They come down that street by the hundreds. Some of them bunches probably had close to 1,000 people in them, screaming and hollering. Of course, you couldn't understand them in Chinese. They had 8 men lined up across the road like this. And the squad leader stood there, and when they got just about the right range, and all 8 men had a 12-gauge shotgun, full choke, with double-aught buckshot in it. And when they got about so close, then the squad leader, a 1, a 2, a 3, and when he said 3, everybody pulled the trigger. They'd be chiming laying all over the street, their guts hanging out, heads blown off, and everything else. That's how you stop a riot. Mm-hmm. I often thought of that when they had the riots in the United States. Well, you couldn't do something like that in this country. You'd be still hurting people. Mm-hmm. Although, when they had the riots in Grand Rapids, they had a bunch of them blacks got on a bus. They went up to Muskegon to start a riot. But when they pulled in the bus depot there, the sheriff and his deputies were standing there, and they all had shotguns. First guy got off, and the sheriff told you, get your ass back out there and get the hell out of town. No. That's the way you take care of riot.
No.
I never forget when I seen it, and it must have been in Newsreel Theater a long time ago when they had the riot out in L.A. there. And there was no police there. These goddamn people were going into these stores and carrying TVs and everything else. Nobody doing a damn thing about it.
Okay. Let's go back to China here. So now, did that kind of more than once? Did your squad have to fight that way more than
about
once?
Every other night.
Okay, but would they actually go all the way and attack you, or did they stay away after a while?
Well, they were still fighting them when I finally come home from China.
Okay.
The damn communists are trying to get in them warehouses. Right. And them Jap warehouses, and the Japs over there. In fact, the Japs even had weapons that was guarding the warehouses. Mm-hmm. They let them have that. And this is after the war's over. And but we was protecting them, Jack. That's what I say. One day you're shooting them, and next day you're gotta risk your life. But them communists over there, they were a bunch of bastards.
All right. Now you have a picture album. You showed us some pictures from China.
Well, that is not the fighting, though.
No, those are some...
them pictures I got there, they was taken by Chinese.
Right.
But they got American on them, too. Mm-hmm.
Right.
I got a whole pack from him.
Okay. So you got along with some of the Chinese, then?
Pardon?
So some of the Chinese were okay?
Well, I got along with some Chinese, all right. Okay. But...
Now, you also had a picture of some Japanese comfort women. Now, did you see any of them yourself? Or
Japanese what?
The comfort women? The women the Japanese
yeah. They traveled with each organization. Mm-hmm. What the hell island was that we got? Maybe that was Okinawa. I down there. It was in the middle of the island, great big building. We took that sucker, and that's where they was at.
Yeah, well, they had them there too.
And then they got shipped home, of course. Mm-hmm. But I often thought many times, gone 15, 20 guys a day. Shit, they'll probably never get married. I actually felt sorry for them, even though they had yellow skin and slant eyes. Oh. I had that trouble with the church over there, you know. And right after Marcy died, and I went to church. Got mad for a couple of weeks there, and I didn't go to church. And I go back to church, and I walk in there. I'm sitting on the aisle, edge of the aisle. Here comes the priest down the aisle. He's got yellow skin and slant eyes. What in the hell? And Kathy and Sue, of course, chewed hell out of me. I can't help it. He's got slant eyes.
All right. Okay, so finally you finish your 6 months, you get to go home. How did you get from China back to the U.S.?
On a slow boat from China.
Mm-hmm.
And then from San Diego on a train. But then the train went to Chicago. We got up to Chicago there at
Station, probably.
pardon?
Union Station.
Yeah, where the
Or where the Army was?
no, Navy.
Oh, Navy. Okay, yeah, Great Lakes?
Yeah, Great Lakes.
Okay.
Yeah, and see, a bunch of us got off because some of the guys come to Michigan, and some go to Ohio, and a bunch of us come back. Anyhow, I was coming over to Michigan, so it was about 9 o'clock when we got to Chicago. So that night they put us up in the naval barracks there. About 2 o'clock in the morning, I woke up. I was soaking wet. The bed was soaking wet, and I was shaking like a damn leaf in a heavy storm. And there was a swamp jockey sitting down by the door. He had a desk down, and this is a 50-room building there. And so I got a yelp at me, so he come and looked at me, and then he called another swamp jockey, and they got a wheelchair, and they put me in that, wheeled me across the road into the Naval Hospital. And I was there. I got there the 9th of January, and I got out of the Naval Hospital March 17th. That's when I got my discharge finally. Right. But I had malaria.
Okay.
That comes back to haunt me every day.
Okay. Now, had you had bouts of malaria before that, or was that the first one?
No, that was the first time I ever had it active on it. Was when I went there, yeah.
Okay.
And since I got married, or from home, I got married about 3 different times I could have it. But then I'd always go down to the drugstore and get some iodine.
Or quinine? Quinine?
Quinine. Take quinine pills. And that didn't bother me, but it comes back to haunt me. Because I had a sister-in-law that was a fleet leader, and when she had her kid, my wife went down and gave blood for it, and I went down and gave blood for it, and they wouldn't take it because I had malaria. And the gal says, you go for the rest of your life, never have it. But we put it in somebody else. Well, and I was always on my driver's license. And at one time, donate my body, for parts. And sometime later, I get a nice letter from the state telling me to get rid of it. They don't want it. Nobody wants it. Nobody will take it.
Now, after you got back, what kind of work did you do after you came home?
After I came home, I went to work, and this doll I was running when I got married. Her folks live out the other side of Coopersville. And I got a job in Muskegon. I was working at cement block plant. And then this hot rod kid. See that right there?
Rammed your leg.
He tore that chunk out. They put it back in. I guess it grew back. And then right after that, I worked with my folks. My dad lived here at the time. He'd come back here, and he was living here. And so I come back over to Grand Rapids, and that's when I went to work. The place I was retired from.
All right. Now, I think your grandson might remember a couple of other stories from your time in the service. So are there...
The time when you were on Guadalcanal and you were left there when the Navy ships all left?
What?
When you were on Guadalcanal and all the Navy ships left you there? The Navy ships left you on Guadalcanal, they all left?
Yeah.
Can you tell us about that?
I don't really remember. We had
How about on...
a couple of scenes. I don't remember clearly though.
How about on Pelelieu when you talked about the big guy that was scared? The big guy on the landing craft that was scared, the big kid.
At Pelelieu?
When you landed on Pelelieu, the big kid that was scared.
Well, we had 2 or 3 big kids in our outfit. And it was always amazing. Some of the little punks was the ones that turned out the toughest. There's so much I don't remember anymore. Just like that book, I go through that. I look at pictures of them guys. I used to go out and get drunk in Melbourne with them, and everything else. And now I can't even remember their names. And I've done some of the stupidest things. One buddy I had all the way across the Pacific. Now I can't even remember his name. But he was in charge of the truck park. And he lived just north of Dallas, Texas. All them years, your grandmother and I went out there with Dallas. Never once ever thought to stop and see him. He lived in a little town that was about 11 miles north of Dallas. All the years I never, what the hell's the matter with me? But I think my memory was going then even.
Okay. Well, you have still told us quite a bit. You gave us actually a lot of information here already.
Names. I told one of my granddaughters there a couple months ago. I said, I'm going to make a new rule in the family. From now on, every baby born's got to have his name tattooed on his forehead. I looked then, 2 years ago, I named every person right now, I bet you I can't hit 30%. That they're getting older, I don't even recognize some of them. I got 2 pictures right here. I know they're my great grandkids. And maybe you can recognize them, John.
All right.
I don't know which family it's from. See, that's trouble. I got 2 families.
All right. Well, to close out the interview here, when if you think back a little bit over the time that you spent in the Marines, how do you think the experience affected you? Did you change by being in there, or were you different when you came out?
Well, when I came out, I only had one woman on the mind. That's the one I married. John, you want to look at them and see if you recognize him. That might be now from the other family. See? That's why I got 2 families. There's, 97 people on my Christmas list.
That's a lot.
I can't do it anymore. I had to stop.
All right. Well, do you think that that being in the Marines changed you at all? Were you any different when you came out than when you went in?
Well, all I say, I've probably grown up when I come out. Just a kid when I went in. I got a little harder. You keep seeing guys blow all the hell around you. Pretty soon you get kind of hard about it. But that's one reason why I burn up all them pictures I had. Because every one of them in the background, there'd be bodies laying there. I thought, grandkids don't need to see any of that. They can get in enough trouble without that.
All right then. Well, I think on the whole, you came out of it pretty well. You came out in one piece.
Yeah.
And
right.
and 65 years later, you can still tell a story. So, I'd just like to thank you very much for taking the time to talk to me today.
Yeah, I don't think I have anything to complain about. I do a lot.